Mirror's Edge is a masterpiece of game design. There, that's it. That's my review. Before we begin, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe if you want to see more content like this on the channel. And if you want to catch all of my reviews or lore videos as soon as they go live, make sure you hit that bell icon so that you never miss a video. Now, with that out of the way, let's get right into the review. I'd like you to cast your minds back 12 years ago, to the year 2008. What a time it was! The Xbox 360 was hot on the scene, although I personally wouldn't own one for another 2 years. And great games like GTA 4, Fallout 3, Call of Duty World at War and Fable 2 were coming out left, right and centre. And on top of all this greatness came one game, and that game was Mirror's Edge. God, I love this game. I love nearly everything about it, and really strongly believe that it's up there as one of the best games ever made. I feel like out of all the games I've ever played, none of them has stayed with me quite like Mirror's Edge. There's just something about it, something that keeps me drawn to it in a way that no other game has. Sure, I could talk about a whole other magnitude of games that I consider to be some of the best ever made, but when looking at Mirror's Edge, I think it's often forgotten, obscured behind a larger variety of more popular games. That's not to say that Mirror's Edge isn't a well-known game or isn't popular in the slightest, but when you compare it to something like Red Dead 2 or Dark Souls, it's not exactly a game that you see people constantly discussing. I can still remember my first interaction with this game. I was yet to get my hands on a 360, so I used to go around my friends' houses and use theirs. Back then I myself wasn't up to date with the latest game releases. I was a good 5 years behind purchasing the current generation of consoles after all. But that isn't to say I didn't appreciate what the new generation was bringing about. So when my mate downloaded a demo for a little game called Mirror's Edge, it absolutely blew my mind. I swear for the longest time we didn't even own the game, we just played the demo, which only included the tutorial stage and the prologue respectively. So by the time I finally got my own 360 and a good enough internet connection to use Xbox Live, I made sure that it was one of the first things I installed. I was obsessed. Mirror's Edge had me under some deep demonic spell or some shit, and at this point I was still only playing the damn demo, which should be a testament to how great this game is. So it was only natural that now that I had my own 360, that I just had to have it, and when I finally did get my hands on a copy, I was not disappointed. So, just what is it about this game that makes it so damn good? Taking place in an unnamed fictional city that would go on to be referred to as the City of Glass in the reboot, you play as Faith Connors, a runner whose sole purpose is to disrupt the corrupt dystopian rule that has engulfed her home. Things soon take a turn for the worse for Faith, however, and when her sister is framed for the murder of City Mayor candidate Robert Pope, she soon finds herself on the run, desperately trying to free her sister, all whilst unravelling the conspiracy that led her here in the first place. A conspiracy which involves an elite group of police freerunners, trained with one goal in mind, to hunt down and eliminate the runners, and all they stand for.
Jackpot. Think I found the nerve center, Merc. Could be some kind of training room. Drake.
What are they training them for? You mean there's something left in the city they haven't managed to tax, ban, or regulate? What the hell's left, huh?
Us. Merc, get your gun.
You know that's never too far away. Why?
This training, Merc. This Project Icarus, Pirandello Kruger, they're not here to bolster the police. They're being trained to come after us. After the runners. All the runners.
Oh, and you think you can step to me? You think you could step up to the streets? To me? You think you could step up over me to the streets?
Now, to be honest, the main story itself is not the main selling point for this game. It's very simplistic and probably something you've seen done hundreds of times before. But despite that, it doesn't make the game any less great. I said at the beginning of the video that this game was a masterpiece of game design, and I meant it. Everything in this game, from the level design to the gameplay mechanics themselves to the soundtrack, is just phenomenal. And despite the simplicity of the campaign, these elements alone are successfully able to keep you heavily engaged and excited throughout the game's short 4 to 6 hour campaign. The gameplay feels fast and fluid, free running feels like a blast, taking on a squad of armed police, whilst insanely dangerous at times, is also sometimes the only option available to you. But no matter what it is, it always feels like you as the player have the choice on how to approach the situations presented to you. Want to take on the police head on? gun them all down and ensure a safe passage through the map, you can do that. Or maybe you want to push your free running skills and outsmart your enemies, you can do that too. And even when the game forces you into some of these combat scenarios, it never feels that way. The fluidity of the gameplay and the movement always remains intact. Now, with gameplay as fast and fluid as this, it has to have a pretty killer soundtrack, and my god, does this game's music deliver. The music in this game gets you pumped. It raises the adrenaline that you already had surging through your body even higher, and because of this, no matter what situation you're in, whether it's an attack helicopter chasing you across the rooftops, or a police ambush coming out of nowhere and storming your position, you always feel inspired to push on and escape, the music making you feel like an ultimate badass. Who could forget that killer end credits theme? In tandem with the soundtrack, I also need to talk about the art design, which is outright gorgeous. The shining white structures in this game, mixed with other various vibrant colours throughout the game, help create a world that's both beautiful and terrifying, acting almost as an allegory for the bleak, enslaved dystopia you're experiencing. Every location has its own distinct colour palette, and whether it's the bold neon yellows of New Eden, or the oranges of Pirandello Kruger, you always feel in awe of just how well crafted and designed each of the game's levels are, each mission's individual soundtrack only further helping to keep each mission fresh and interesting. The game's cutscenes opt for a 2D animated approach, which whilst feeling odd at first, only helped to further define the game's style even more, and since my first playthrough I consistently look forward to seeing them. Whilst not all of the cutscenes are equally as engaging, there are a few that really stand out and create a really great atmosphere. It is also here that we get the main bulk of the character and plot development in the game, which whilst pretty basic and on the nose, is still good enough at keeping you engaged. Aside from the cutscenes, the plot also develops during the missions in the form of Merc's radio chatter, which can be very entertaining at times.
Did you just do what I think you did? God damn it, girl, I just spilled my Joe all over the keyboard.
On top of this, you also have the runner vision mechanic, which is at its core an easier way for you to be able to tell what objects are most effective at getting you to where you need to go. The vibrant red of these objects, much like the other colours used in the game, stand out so well against the bold white base of the buildings and structures, and whilst you can play on a harder difficulty which removes this mechanic, it honestly just makes the game look outright flat and boring. There was also many times where I could hardly see my screen simply because of how white it was. I mean, seriously, look at this! How the hell am I possibly supposed to tell where to go? It's so goddamn white! However, as much as I've raved about how well crafted this game is, that's not to say that it's perfect. Whilst still really polished and fluid, the free running can get outright annoying at times, and I experienced many instances of either just terrible hitboxes or of Faith outright refusing to even do what I told her to do, resulting in multiple deaths that felt outright unfair and out of my control. Just in case you haven't spotted any in the gameplay yet, here's a segment from the penultimate mission, Kate, where I struggled way more than I had to simply climb up a few damn ledges to get to my goal. Now, whilst the registration can get annoying at times, it is by no means broken, and I really do appreciate the fact that even though I've played this game 2 billion times, that it still challenges me, and that I still find myself trying out new approaches to each mission. It gives you a reason to replay it and to try and beat your time in order to become the master of its mechanics. I played through it twice just for this review, the second time being purely because it lagged like crazy on Twitch and I had to record it offline. And even after playing 2 playthroughs so close together, I am still far from mastering these levels. I made stupid mistakes on both playthroughs and took way longer than I needed to in order to figure out the optimal path through each mission. And this isn't even counting the fact that I've played this game countless times before making this review. It's a game of pure skill, and whilst it isn't brutally difficult, the challenge is still there, and it's a very rewarding experience every time. I said earlier that this game is pretty short, and I myself was able to beat it in little under 4 hours. But the beauty of this game is that it doesn't feel short. Each level feels rewarding and pushes the story forward more than enough, and because of that, you never feel like you're being cheated or rushed through the game. And in a game where the entire point is getting to the end of a mission as fast as possible, I can't really complain that it's on the shorter side. Because of its short length, however, the game can feel almost like a glorified tech demo, and to be honest, that's exactly what it is. This was a game made by D.I.C.E during a time when they wanted to prove to the world that they weren't just a slave to EA, that they could push themselves beyond Battlefield and create something truly special, and holy hell did they succeed. It's really a shame that we've never truly had another game like this since, and whilst Catalyst may have followed on, it really doesn't feel the same. Now, I do intend to review Catalyst, but for now what I will say is this game was almost like a dream for D.I.C.E, to push past the limitations set by EA and the Battlefield franchise, and even though they succeeded, the chance clearly never came again. They went back to Battlefield and continued to make EA that sweet moolah, and despite demand for a sequel, they were never really in a position to make one. So when they did, it obviously didn't come out as refined and inspired as what we have here. It only makes it worse that this game ends on a cliffhanger with a lot of its plot points still unresolved, but I guess we'll never find out just what happens with Callahan and Project Icarus. Now, I'd love to replay Mirror's Edge Catalyst, have my entire opinion of that game change, and end up loving it just as much as this one, but after playing the first game again, I'm more or less certain that won't be the case. Overall, however, this game is incredible. It not only pushed the FPS genre in fresh new directions that at the time we'd never seen before, but was also for me one of the first games I ever played that cemented in my mind that games are an art form and should be respected as such. I'm sure you already know exactly what score I'm going to give this game, but I'm going to say it anyway. Its art design, gameplay, soundtrack, and even its more simplistic story all go together expertly well, giving me more than enough reason to give it a 10 out of 10. And that is also why Mirror's Edge is a masterpiece.